Welcome, everyone. Thank you for those of you who have stuck with us since the beginning of the morning, and welcome to those of you who are just joining now. This session is the product session for the Amplify Texas product for 6 through 8. And I'm going to hand it over to Camilla, and she is going to walk you through what you need to know about Amplify, and then she'll also be able to answer your questions. So feel free to include those in the chat, and we'll also have time at the end for a lot of Q&A and anything you need to know.
Thank you, Kendrick. Hello, everyone. My name is Camilla Simpson, and I'm excited to be here with you today. Once again, thank you for those of you that have stayed with us. We are going to talk Amplify ELAR today. I'm a product specialist with Amplify, and here is our agenda. We're going to talk about the 6-8 solution, then going to walk us through the framework of Amplify ELAR Texas, supporting learning gaps. We're going to talk about embedded differentiated support, as well as lesson scaffolds, and then some teacher tools that you have access to. I'm going to introduce you to Amplify Texas's core, K5 ELAR and SLAR, as well as 6-8 ELAR program. These are available through Texas Home Learning, and the focus is going to be for this session on 6 through 8, so Amplify ELAR Texas. Here is the structure or the framework of Amplify ELAR. Notice that there are literature, history, and science connections that build, and this happens through the middle grades 6, 7, and 8. The instruction is sequenced to provide a deep understanding over time. And we are also built on the science of reading. So as students in the K5 build their language comprehension and word recognition, the next step is increasing strategically in their automaticity of their reading. So how do we do that? We provide students with that support by deliberately allowing them scaffolds to synthesize the comprehension and those strategies. Here are some amazing things about Amplify ELAR. It is digital and it's built for middle school and ready to support remote learning. Here are the product highlights, if you will. There are 6 core units in each grade, and it's centered around rich text. And these are fully aligned TEKS and ELPS coverage, as well as the interactive digital platform that both teacher and students get to experience. There's a digital library and formative assessments and end of unit assessments, including some robust reporting. The units in Amplify ELAR Texas are flexible. So these are units that allow teachers the opportunity to support students. And we're talking about gaps. How do we do that? So we have units, some supplementals like grammar, poetry in America, in addition to those core units we talked about earlier. Reading support for all learners is built directly into the platform. That means that we have things called reveal words. These blue words you see over here to the left, these are words that provide students with a student-friendly synonym or definition in the context the word is being used in the text. So essentially what students will do is click on those reveal words, and it actually opens up that definition for students. The other are highlights, bookmarks, and notes or annotations. Students are able to do this directly within the platform as you see here, and students can also change their highlight color. The amazing thing is that these stay with the students. So when they return to the text or they open this piece of text in the Amplify library, their highlights and annotations are still there. And then text size and spacing. Students are able to enlarge the text or decrease it, and also create more spacing as they're working with Amplify ELAR Texas. Here's the structure. Lessons are routine, but they're flexible activities. So To begin, students build vocabulary through an interactive and engaging vocab app. The other thing with the vocab app is it is adaptive. And so as my student grows, the vocab app will provide them with more challenging words. If my student is struggling, and then what will happen is the app will adapt for my students. The next thing is close reading. When we're getting into the lesson, there are strong scaffold support through every unit, through every lesson. And the close reading is flexible. So there are going to be moments where students are having discussions. They're highlighting, they're annotating, or students are even collaborating. They're listening to the reading during that close reading moment. And then we're going to work on our performance task, another area where we're going to be flexible. Students will respond or write to text about 2 to 3 times per week or lesson. And another performance task that students can do are things like role playing, debating. These are moments where students have an opportunity to really further their analysis and deepen their understanding. The text is at the center of what students are doing. And so these will happen hand in hand, and they can be interchangeable within a lesson. After that, students are going to reflect on their learning. And this is, of course, meant to solidify their learning. They'll have wrap-ups. There are embedded polls as well as exit tickets. And we will talk about those a little bit more. And then independent work. These are called solos, and students are able to really develop their reading skills. They have a moment to annotate, and this is automatically being scored. Here is a peek into the Vocab app. Once again, it is engaging, it's interactive, and it allows students an opportunity to receive immediate feedback. So I'm going to kind of bring this screen over here so you're able to get a peek into what the Vocab app looks like. So whether the student receives the answer correct or incorrect, that immediate feedback is there. And one word can have essentially up to 11 different activities associated with that word. So students are able to see and experience that word in multiple contexts and in a variety of activity types. The next thing I want to share with you are the scaffolds and that strong support. Notice that students will have the very rich audio within the platform. Here's another example of the highlighting, but students can read along with the recording and listen for details that capture your attention. This is how we are starting this lesson with our students. We're not going to leave anything to chance, and we're going to build on this process. Another example is when students are working with their writing techniques. These are all moments and part of the activity. Because the text is at the center, students are going to copy and paste the things that grab their attention or the items that they've highlighted, and we're going to build and scaffold that process. What technique is the author using here to bring the topic to life? This is actually a drop down, and so students have the ability to select the technique that the author is using here. Something else that's going to happen in Amplify ELAR Texas, there are frequent low stakes formative assessment moments. We did talk about the automatic scoring in the solos, but also TEKS aligned exit tickets. Independent reading comprehension can be done on the digital platform as well as on their mobile device. And students are going to respond to text every 2 to 3 lessons. Those formative writing moments are automatically being scored as well. And here's an example of an easy to use teacher tool that supports all learners with our levels of embedded support. And so here you can see that when a teacher is ready to make a change or provide the support for students, they can do this right on the spot. It is a simple drag and drop. With those levels of support, the embedded support allows teachers to still have the on-grade level text for students that need it, but if I have substantial, moderate, light, challenge, or LDEF students in my class, I can provide those supports as well. And students stay in the level of support I've provided for them until I move them again. So I can decide when my student needs the support and provide it immediately. When we look at some examples of what this embedded support looks like, here is a core question, if you will. Would you volunteer to travel to a place with yellow fever to investigate the cause of the disease? It's also another opportunity for me as a teacher to see what exactly did I provide for support for my students. Here is an example. Students will receive sentence starters. They can copy and paste and begin writing. Notice the strong scaffolds here. Students still have access to the prompt as well as the text. The highlights, the annotations that they have made are still here to support them. And then when we talk about the feedback tools, how do we close that gap with our students? The automatic scoring of the assignments also allows you as a teacher to make comments, including emote icons, and there's a comment bank. So for the comments or responses that I use multiple times throughout all of my classes, I can save those. And so now it's just a click where I'd like to insert that. There are also summative reading and writing assessments at every unit. And the summative reading assessments also allow for the audio still to be there, as well as an option to turn this on for my students to have the question and answer choices read. What's amazing is students have the ability to speed this up or slow this down, but we want to ensure that students have the support that they need. Progress monitoring happens in this moment where we're reporting. So we're collecting all of this information about your students as they're working. And yes, we're automatically grading the writing and the exit tickets and the solos. But where else does this go? And so when we're progress monitoring and reporting, you get this strong amount of data and information to provide interventions. So we have built-in flex days, those are your intervention days, into the curriculum. These occur about every 3 to 6 lessons. So as you're teaching, you know that if I have a student that needs to work on grammar or a student that needs to work on revisions or revising, they're able to do so on those intervention days. And then I'll keep teaching. And what happens is the next time an intervention day rolls around, this is going to change. And so I can see who are my students now that are struggling with language, my students struggling with reading, as well as my students that are struggling with writing. It's also a great opportunity for you as a teacher to know, did that intervention work? Was it successful, or do I need to try a different tool for intervention? Our Amplify library has over 700 full-length text and titles where students can read what they love and what they want to read. These also provide information on Lexile levels. There are synopsis, and students can even search by their favorite genres right here in the library. When they select start reading, that's exactly what happens. They're able to see the text and begin reading immediately. There are also immersive experiences called Quest at every grade level, and these allow students to work collaboratively and extend their thinking in the units that they've been working in. Students really enjoy taking this moment. It kind of breaks up the class routine that we shared or talked about earlier, and it really allows students an opportunity to take the lead. So now let's talk about your Texas home learning site for Amplify ELAR Texas. If you have not been, there is a wealth of information and knowledge there, including information about CRIMC. So the COVID Recovery Instructional Materials Support Initiative, here is just a preview or an example of the support that's available right now. So there's a course overview, including sample materials, as well as professional learning. So what is the plan? What are the resources, as well as what are the assessments and grading guides? So I bring us back to the offerings for Amplify Texas. And Amplify Texas is an OER product. Teachers do not need to plan for purchasing licenses later on. This is free. So if you have any questions as we kind of wrap up, that's kind of the big gist, please feel free to ask. I'll be more than happy to answer them.
And you can put your questions in the chat. You're also welcome to come off mute since we're in meeting. You're able to unmute yourself and ask questions that way if that's easier than trying to type everything out.
Camilla, I may have missed it. Are there any assessment components to Amplify?
Yes, there are. So each unit has an end of unit assessment. It is TEKS aligned. And throughout each lesson, there are embedded formative assessments happening. So we're asking students questions. They're automatically being scored for you. And then you always have the exit ticket as well as those solos happening. Excellent question.
And what about any end of term assessments? Are those also included, or would those need to be teacher created?
We do have items that teachers can use for end of term, but teachers have usually been using the end of unit assessments because they are going to increase in complexity. They're on grade level as well. And teachers also utilize those exit tickets because they're TEKS aligned grade level questions. So that progress monitoring is happening on a consistent basis.
And when you say that teachers have access, do they have access to a test bank of questions?
They have access to the entire unit assessment. Let me log in so I can show you exactly what that looks like. And yes, Amplify does support our L students, including that embedded differentiated support. That's one of the 5 levels of support. Excellent questions. All right, so here is an example. This is our A unit. And so here's an example of where the end of unit assessment lives. Because there are 6 units, you have 6 opportunities to, once again, progress monitor, see how your students are doing. And with these assessments, the reminder here is students have the rich audio within Amplify ELAR. They also have the ability as a teacher, you can turn on the option to have the question and answer choices read to students here. Each passage in Amplify ELAR has a different narrator, and the narrator is going to mimic or match either the writer or the theme or the tone of the writing. And so I can always jump into this passage and share just what this audio sounds like. So here students are working in a partner activity. So there's collaboration happening, and teacher has access to see exactly what students are working with. You do not need a separate login, if you will. And here's your instructional guide at point of use. Students are actually reading a lifeless audio of Cinderella because they're going to start to perform and act out the scene. So we start with, here's what we don't want your read aloud or your performance to sound like. And now let's listen to not just a narrator, but the fluency, the prosody that the reading has. Here's an example.
Chairman Mao, our beloved leader, smiled down at us from his place above the blackboard. The sounds and smells of the tantalizing May afternoon drifted in through the window. The sweet breeze carried the scent of new leaves and tender young grass and rippled the paper slogan below Chairman Mao's picture.
And so here again are those blue reveal words that I talked about. This is where you can definitely see them in action. If I have a student that isn't sure what tantalizing means, they are able to select this word, and it means tempting. And students can actually replace the reveal word with the word that's in context and continue reading. Another reminder about those highlights as well as annotations, these stay with the students as they make them through the text. Any other questions?
If students are annotating and making notes on the text, is it saved in their account in the cloud?
Yes, it is. It stays right there. And what we do to ensure that students are keeping the text at the center of what they do is, now that students are making those highlights here, the next activity is going to have them start to pull those highlights out into the scaffolds. So once they continue highlighting, let's analyze perspective. Let's take those highlights and actually apply them. Notice students are working with emotions here, and we know that we have some L students that may not understand. So here are the image representations of those emotions to make sure that all students have access to the space, as well as an embedded poll that's here. Excellent question. So here they're going to paste the quote that supports their answer, and this too stays with them.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
How does Amplify support EL students?
So Amplify does support our L students, not just through each of the lessons, but that embedded differentiated support is there. And then at the beginning of each lesson, there's another section on differentiation. So we do provide the L supports in the vocabulary app. The teacher has the option of placing students, our L students, on a track for L. And what that does is allows students an opportunity to work in the Vocab App and improve their Ls. So it'll ask them about words in Spanish, for example, or students are working with more pictures as they progress. The app is adaptive. So sometimes teachers may place a student in L and notice they come back and students are working on something else because they're progressing. And that is what, of course, we want for our students. Yes, we are TEKS and ELPS aligned. So thank you, Felicia, for that question. We do cover both. You're welcome. These are some excellent questions.
How will teachers know which TEKS are being covered in the lesson and at what time?
Excellent question. Immediately when teachers begin, here's the lesson brief or overview. There's a skills and standards section. And here are all of the TEKS as well as the ELPS right here. And then when the teacher is working within the lesson and you open your teacher guide, I'll just go into activity number 3 here. And let me see where I can find one. Let's try 5. There are additional moments where we'll call out and share with the teacher. Here is the TEKS and ELPS alignment, as well as those possible responses. Excellent questions. Are there any other questions? Usually I also get questions about the difference between the teacher view as well as the student view. And we've purposefully designed an ease of use for both teacher and student. So the difference between the teacher view and student view, you don't need a separate login, is that the activity, objective, and the suggested time here, this is all teacher facing. My student sees everything underneath on their screen. When we're talking about navigating between lessons as well, the teacher can just go move from lesson to lesson, and so can the students. And so now I am in lesson number 3. Wherever there's a plus symbol, it's an indicator to me as the teacher that this activity provides the embedded differentiation support for my students. Are there any other questions? Maybe questions around tools, teacher tools, the grading, the reporting? Feel free to type those in the chat. And while you do that, I'll just share with you some other examples of the embedded differentiated support within Amplify ELAR Texas. So in the PowerPoint presentation, I kind of showed you how easy it is to move a student's differentiation level. When teachers see this symbol, this is exactly where it happens. So they select yes, and then they will be able to move their students. If teachers ever wonder, what do these mean again? What is L developing? Do I want a student here? These question marks provide that support. There may be questions around CRIMSI. Are there any questions? And I can also share with you the website so that you can see the unit snapshots as well as units we recommend for teachers using doing the CRIMSI.
And if you were with us yesterday, we shared also the CRIMSI application for summer and full year, and also that spring adoption coaching. I'll also put that in the chat right here, this same site that Camilla is showing you, so that you have that as well to access that information about CRIMSI.
And then there is the unit snapshot as well. So if there are no other questions, or if you think of questions later, oh, I do see one, please feel free to reach out. How can an individual teacher user login be obtained? And so through the Texas Home Learning, as well as through the CRIMSI, teachers will just fill out, there's a sign in as well as a register. So here, teachers who haven't registered will go ahead and register, and you will receive that information. And I always say, click everything, go through everything, explore the library as well.
Camilla, you shared in the K-5 session about some of the professional development that's available for teachers once they're logged in and can see all of that. Because in case we've got some people that joined just for this, could you share that with this group as well so people can see what options are out there for teachers when they're thinking about implementation planning?
Absolutely. So first, yes, there's support here for teachers, but there are also supports, and let me head back there to that session. Give me a moment to find exactly where it is. Here we go. And so in addition to, of course, the CRIMC support, we have an entire professional learning website dedicated to teachers. There are videos there. You'll also see things like I'll start here, any explanations about this, but that ongoing support is happening. And it is, yes, Jennifer, it is free. So when we're working with teachers, you have an opportunity to ask questions. Also built into the platform, there is a helper. So it's actual intercom where you're able to reach out to us if you have questions. So that ongoing professional development and support is happening for teachers. All of these webinars from inception have been recorded for you as well to kind of go back. If you have questions about navigation, we have support there as well. I can definitely talk about administrator and teacher partner access. You can, of course, add co-teachers. So we know that there are teachers that work with students from a variety of classrooms, so they can see the students' performance and how they're working. Accessing the teacher materials, they can do the exact same thing. They're able to go in and see exactly what the teacher sees. And then we do have kind of an administrative overall report that shares the writing and shares kind of the performance and what's happening. So when they're at the school level, administrators can see that and have a closer collaboration with teachers and students, because of course we all want to close some of those gaps that we see that our students are having. Excellent question. If you have not explored or registered, I want to bring us right back here to Texas Home Learning, where you can register, you can sign in. And if you have any questions about registration, there's a quick walkthrough there as well. And I will also open our implementation series. So here are kind of the foundations. You have questions, you want to see those implementation pieces, that support is there as well. No, it will be the same. The question was, is there a separate sign-in? So ESC staff that are working, you're supporting teachers, you're going through as a support facilitator or a co-teacher, you'll have the same sign-in process. You're welcome. These are all some really excellent questions. Just a reminder, this is digital, so working remotely with students, teachers have the ability to receive the automatic grades and provide feedback to students wherever they are. And on the student end, they're able to see their teacher feedback, and it'll take them directly to that lesson or activity that you have provided. So the conversation between student and teacher is happening even in that remote space. There, we are here. So if you're thinking of other questions, definitely sign in. Oh, I do see a kind of technical question. Kendrick, I'm not sure if you can provide some guidance support.
Sure. So Sharon, I can reach out to you and we can try to get you connected with the right people for that to figure out getting you some access there. So I will jot that down and send you an email later today.
Wonderful question.
If there are not any other questions, I am going to put a link in the chat for feedback for today's session. If you have been here since pre-K this morning, it's the same link. We do ask for each session, we'd like to know your feedback specific to that content. Let's see, what was the answer to the last question? Jennifer, were you referring to the registration issue and only having access to the demo?
Yes.
Okay, I'll follow up about that. I don't have that answer right now to figure out getting you that access and what's happening there. So I will write down your name as well and see if we can figure out what's happening with that. Any other questions before we wrap up? All right, well, I'm putting that feedback survey in the chat. And please do reach out if you think of questions later, if you think of anything else that you need to know about Amplify ELAR 6 through 8. I know that Camilla would be happy to answer them and follow up with you if there's anything else you think of.
Absolutely.
Thank you all so much.
Have a great day, everyone.